So thank you very much. And Visa, I must say that it was such a good precursor around performance management and then moving into actually pay for performance, short-term incentives. So it's kind of in line, but also a little bit a dilemma that it poses, right? From the same point of view, is it pay for performance for development or performance for pay? But let's look at that. So today, here I am to talk about rethinking short-term incentives, programs that drive sustained performance. A short introduction you've already given. Thank you, Jan. Currently, I'm heading rewards for Hempel for an interim period. I'm an independent consultant and have worked as head of rewards for different organizations like Maersk, Kobe, American Express, and also spent some time with Mercer. And those experiences have really shaped my thinking and my learnings and perspectives that I bring to you. But it will not be only mine, because your discussion into this will be quite critical. Is it the green one? Yes. So short-term incentives is a rather very vast subject, and I really cannot cover everything. So I have planned the program into two parts. The first one is quite tangible in the sense to just look at why, what are the design concepts, why do we need incentives, and then how do we really go about designing a bonus program. And it's a little bit thinking about the building blocks and taking away something tangible that you can use for design. And the second part is really looking at some case studies to see what complicates bonus programs, because I have gone to so many places and seen different type of programs, and there is always that undercurrent out there which starts to complicate bonus programs and work to simplify. So let's look at them and then have a discussion around it to see what we can learn from each other. And what are the simple strategies that could work to simplify bonus programs and really define this dilemma that we just discussed in the previous conversation as well. So let's get to the basics. Why do we have incentives, and why are short-term incentives even prevalent in a world like today, where there is a lot of question around do they really work? And how do you design a good STI program? So it really comes or emanates from a very known motivation theory, the that, and it's a very linear equation really if you look at it, that a short-term incentives leads to increased discretionary effort, which leads to business performance. And I think you can't really argue on that. There is a very established mechanism and a foundation to why we have these STI programs. We would also see that STI programs in organizations are the ones that help execute business strategy. They give alignment to organization goals. It helps us de-risk the P&L, because as a nature of an STI, you give or share the profits in a good year, and you take it back when you don't perform. So it's a very good way to manage your fixed cost of employees. So very financially driven reward program, and it also ensures a skin in the game. And we clearly say that it's really a good program is about that collective ownership and individual responsibility that defines a good bonus program. So that starts to establish the why of a STI program. I have met a lot of criticism around bonus programs as well, because there are, when you work with engineers and you work with very motivated, dedicated people, they always argue, do we really need a bonus program? I'm doing this job because I love my job. I don't need a bonus program, or my people don't need it. Fairly true. But you know what? We cannot defy what is there in the market. And we have seen that 95% of the organizations or actually more have an STI program. So as reward managers, when we look at the whole total reward spectrum, you cannot just take away a program that is being given by everyone, because then it hinders our ability to attract and retain talent. And that's why we have to be market competitive and have an STI program. It does help measure the business performance and then give that reward to an individual. Again, performance for tying it to your pay program. So you really cannot come out of that. And then one of the very big whys or why it is prevalence is it does ensure a feeling of inclusion and belonging. And I think we cannot underestimate the part or the benefit that comes out of having an STI program. So I'll just take a question. Do you also feel or heard that criticism around whether do we need a bonus program in our organization? Any hands there? Yeah. And just those methods on, can we really counter it? Yes. Maybe we don't need, just like we are talking about, do we really need ratings or not ratings? And then there are different school of thoughts. That is the same thing that we look on bonus programs. But till the time other organizations are doing, I think we need bonus programs, and that's why we have them. Getting into the mechanics of designing a program, then we have to first be very careful on defining the purpose of what your bonus program wants to do. And I've just given some examples here, but that will be the key when you have your discussions to say, what are the 2 to 3 you want to pick? Maybe it is alignment to business strategies. Maybe it is about attraction of skills and being market competitive. But one of the requests I always have is that don't try to do everything through a bonus program. Be very conscious, careful on what are the key 2 to 3 things that you want through your bonus program, and that'll give you a good program. Otherwise, you will start to complicate it and again fall into a trap of having a program that people are not able to understand. Again, getting deeper into the mechanics here, what are the building blocks? And many of you would have gone through it or designed it yourself or in the process. It's just like a refresher where I'm just sharing some of the questions here to be able to almost build a foundation that a program needs to define what the eligibility is, who's going to get it. Where will the money come from? Will it be a top-down approach or a bottoms approach? How do you want to fund the program? So ask those questions because that will help you get the program into a shape. What are the measurement criteria? And those KPIs are really, really important. What are the KPIs that are going to underpin a bonus program? And what are you really going to measure? Is it going to be a lot more group performance or a lot more sector performance and so on and so forth? And that is actually, I would say, spend the most time because it may look really good for 1 year, but then again, it won't stay sustainable if you haven't had those very challenging conversations with your leaders because every leader brings a very different perspective when you're designing the program. Very key. Award levels. How would you define award levels? How would you differentiate that between one job to another? And these almost always starts to link with equity, fairness, transparency, and everything that we have discussed between yesterday and today around pay transparency as well. So being very sharp on what is that for the market, what is that for the region, and what is that for your own company. And of course, target calibration, a beautiful connection to exactly what we just discussed 30 minutes back. More often than not, you are faced with design choices. And that is what is the core of designing a program or making sure that it's sustainable. So this is the time to sit with the leaders. I'm not going into all of them, but it's just saying slider, see what works for your organization. Bonuses or any reward programs are always contextual. We cannot copy and paste what worked for you may not work for me in my organization. And therefore, being very clear, whether you want a group performance, more relying on the group side, or you want business unit performance, and what is the weightage for each of them. And that is a real outcome of what your business strategy is and what you believe in as a joint leadership team. And my recommendation always is, and my experience has been, this is where you need to spend the time with your leaders because you will face very different leaders and very different perspective. So the choice is to bring them together in that conversation and then agree to disagree as well sometimes because we know when you're talking to a group of leaders, there will be very different viewpoints. Let's take another example. formula driven or management discretion. We as reward professionals always would like formulae so that a result can come out. But that's not the reality, because your leaders will say, I want discretion. I have this extra 100,000 more and I want to really sprinkle it to people. What does it do? It creates biases, it creates inequities, it becomes difficult for us to explain. So there are pitfalls in it, and then you have to really either help them or find a good way to manage that process, because that becomes quite critical to ensure that it's worked well without any biases. So again, if we do this right, it's very important to spend the time on the design choices, because these design choices, where your slider really ends, will determine what the outcome of a program is. And there are no two programs that at least I have seen are similar. They are all very contextual. So if you were to just take away what are the best practices that make these short-term incentives attractive, are try not to get caught up in too many KPIs. Like literally, I have very recently seen a program which has 17 KPIs, and I'm like, okay, are you trying to ask someone to really work on 17 things and measure them like 2%? Is it going to really give something? So simplify that. A good program, maximum 4, less would be even better. I know it is hard, and it's not about saying whether it's really practical, but yes, it is. When you start to look at STI programs that are out published there, you will see that good programs, great organizations have less, they measure, and then they share the wealth or the profits that are with people. A very, consequently saying that every KPI should be meaningful enough so that people can really see, okay, if I go there and do this, then I can bring this home because that's a share of my profit. And of course, do not have sub schemes. And that's also one of the biggest problems that we see, that while we may say that this is there, but then there becomes many, 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 many schemes there. So keep out of it, because then it doesn't help you simplify or govern the program. So that's really on the part one of what I wanted to share. But here is where, we move to the next and the more interesting part on what complicates STI programs and how do we simplify. And I know there is an incredible experience in this room. I would encourage you to take comments and questions, and then we just open it up, because we are going to learn from each other, and I would not have answers for everything. There's a limited experience I bring in that I share, but it's about this conversation that we may have after. One very interesting thing that I have often heard is that the STI will fix everything. Oh, I need a bonus program. Let's do everything. Let's fix everything around. And this is what is going to guarantee my business performance and great people and great performance and all of that. But then we need to really pause and ask that question, does it? Right? And restart thinking about what it has to deliver. So I can really go 5 pages slides back and say, define your purpose. What we see on the top is the business performance, and I don't know if you can really make out. This was my attempt to make an iceberg here, where I'm trying to convey that it's actually the top of the iceberg, which is the business performance, which we see because those are numbers. But there is a lot more intangible things that are under the iceberg, which is like the leadership and values culture, the goal alignment, the calibration, and collaboration. And you cannot take them away. And those are the undercurrents out there. We have to bring all of that out to make a good bonus program. And I kind of relate so much to Visa, what you mentioned, because that is about how you manage performance and the dialogues that are happening and the leadership culture there is there and the culture of praise that is there and giving continuous feedback that all flows into a business performance. And one of the lever is a reward program, which is the STI, and being very sharp on that. Here is where we will understand this, what I have seen as common pitfalls through some case studies. And the first one that I bring out, and the common or the key pitfalls that I saw was, again, a complicated business scorecard. No line of sight to an actual outcome very clearly. So many KPIs out there with 2% weightage that it really doesn't make any more sense, because then you're not really looking at that incentive to drive performance and behavior if that was the purpose, because you've actually made it so insignificant that you cannot relate to it. It was perceived as unfair, and actually, this was very interesting. It took us some time to really understand. It was over-engineered to say that, the business unit working, and then you get the outcome on how your business unit performance was. But if you zoomed out, that organization, the collaboration between the business units was actually making one business unit perform better. And, that a little more deeper was that actually one business unit lend talent to the other business unit to deliver on projects. So when you have that mechanism where there is talent fungibility and using knowledge from each other, but ultimately you're rewarding the business unit where the projects are being done, you're actually punishing the business unit which had hired, nurtured, trained talent, but now lending it to the other business unit for their performance. So it was quite interesting to see that, yes, they were delivering, but at the cost of another business unit. So is that really harboring collaboration or not? And we needed to really think about the P&L model out there to say whether or not bonus was working. And of course, there was no linkage to individual performance assessment, because then the criteria was not objective and people could not see it. So those were the common pitfalls. And once we were able to estimate that this is driving the maximum negative outcome of this bonus program, it was easier for us to simplify that plan and really come with very sharp program criteria and therefore a new program. Looking at another case, very similar in many ways, but also very unique in some other ways, was that there were so many business scorecards that just allocating a scorecard became like a monster. The HR wasn't clear, the business leaders were not clear, and ultimately the people were not clear, because we haven't built that clarity around what is the expectation and where do you belong. So at the outset, when you're getting hired, because you are doing work for 2 to 3 business units, and there is like a plethora of business scorecards that you have to select from, it became quite a difficult and an unclear process, which was again a recipe for disaster. There was so much volatility in the segment performance that noise obviously always came from non-performing units. And I think I will call in for some more discussion here, because this is what we generally see, that when we have many subunits, some units perform well, and those are undercurrents, geopolitical reasons, certain reasons that are not in our control. Then how do we measure segment performance? Because ultimately we are all looking for the group performance, and we want to make sure that our organization as a whole is successful. And well, this is more closer home when we haven't spent the time to have a consistent pay mix. And it starts to create all the unfairness and inequity and not understanding the bonus program, where we say our bonus design is wrong, but really, is the bonus design wrong or is the pay mix wrong? So my encouragement would be to really dig deep and say what is the problem, and not make the whole program wrong if actually there is only one element which we as reward professionals can fix if we have the right benchmark and we understand our organization and the markets we play in. A little bit of theory always works, because what we are really trying to do is trying to see what makes things productive. What are the elements of productivity? And there are many out there, and I'm not saying like this is the one to go to, but I was inspired by this one, which is work on redesigning work by Linda Grattan, professor at London Business School. And she's laid down 4 elements of productivity, which is energy, what we bring, and the energy and the passion that we bring. Our focus or deep work definitely defines productivity. And the more research we do, we see that on how focused we are and we are not doing 1,000 things at the same time. Then there is coordination, how we work with each other and how we cooperate, and the lines of communication and a collaboration that we have. I focus on the two, which is the coordination and cooperation, saying that in the VUCA world and the way the world is evolving, cooperation will become the most important. And therefore, be careful about segmenting and sub-segmenting in the desire to bring the plan closer to employees. And you will hear that a lot, that my person working in this department, in this region, in this country, in this location cannot really see what this program is bringing. And the request is to really zoom out, that he's doing his job well because he's collaborating with so many people. So don't underestimate collaboration. And in my own words, it's about that interconnectedness that we have and the empathy we have when we work with each other in different functions that make companies successful, and therefore rewarding that is quite key. So don't take it away from sub-segmentation, because then they are two different or contradicting priorities that we have. Last is, it's a balancing act. There is no right or wrong answer in this, and it's a very cliche to say that, but it truly is, because the moment you try to give one thing, you have to take away the other, and therefore the design choices become very important. But really, on the theme of interconnectedness, and we will be successful together, and collaboration, then the maximum weightage on the group KPIs is always recommended, because then we all have one goal, which is make my company successful rather than making my team and my department successful. If we all are successful, we will lead to the group. So having that weightage there. KPIs that are directly linked to strategy. Of course, there's no debate about it. It has to be linked to your business strategy, and you should utilize a good bonus program to be able to drive your business strategy. Where you can have regional country segment, be careful on how far you go on the segmentation. There is always that dilemma that we face, is bring it closer, lack of visibility. I want to be able to have line of sight. So bring that too, because they are always on the competing ends of the spectrum. The more scorecards you make and bring it closer in your effort for line of sight, the more you take it away. And one good way of doing that is that there should be a critical mass of employees sharing a scorecard. The moment you say that you have started making a scorecard for 2 people or 3 people, then you know you're doing it wrong. That's like good red flag that you have for yourself. Never make it, because you're entering into a pit hole then. And find a way to do individual assessment of performance against goals. It could be ratings, no ratings, etc. And incidentally, I have actually seen both of them working very well. I have been in an organization where ratings have worked very well because there was an underlying continuous feedback mechanism. And I've also worked in a company which actually was quite difficult for me in the beginning as a reward professional. After 20 years, I landed in a company where there were no ratings. And I was like, how do you do rewards? Because for me, I've grown up on ratings and connecting it to to pay. But it worked beautifully, purely because there was such a good continuous feedback, and then your results were showing whether you were doing it well or not. And underperformance was being not tolerated. So people were really moving out if they were not performing. So there are both the ways. It again is very contextual, but we can keep that in mind. If I was to just end and say key success criteria, they're again very simple. Keep it simple and easy to understand. Like, if people cannot understand it, then the bonus program is going to give you a lot of woes later, and make it fair and transparent. And that will also lead us to the whole world of pay transparency that we are entering. So very important to keep clear on these two success criteria. Keep testing it against that. Thank you. But I open it to questions and also discussions because I know there could be a few out there and your experiences.
Great. Thanks so much.